Hello everyone, thanks for coming to my presentation. I'm delighted to be speaking with you via this video. In this presentation, I'm going to be talking to you about understanding diversified evaluation in ASL writing classroom, an insight from effectiveness of peer assessment feedback. By the way of an introduction, my name is Qiyu from Shanghai Jiaotong University. I'm talking to you also on behalf of the other two researchers of this study, Dr. Fang Chen and Shenkai Yin. And this presentation will be divided into these four sections. To start off, I'll briefly introduce the background of our study. As we know, a plethora of studies have already examined the effects of peer feedback in comparison with that of teachers on students' revision quality and writing performance. However, research on effectiveness and utilization of peer feedback mainly focused on the implementation rate of feedback or pre-post gains in writing scores. With the development of NLP, a diverse range of objective measures of linguistic features have been deployed, and their application in writing literature has notably proliferated in recent years. Such fine-grained measures often reveal much valuable information about writing quality than a rough score does, and can serve as additional indices to evaluate changes between drafts. However, they have not been applied to the writing class, which they should because they can sensitively capture the differences and complement human ratings for more convincing conclusions. Now let's turn to features of peer feedback. Feedback features defined as the structural components of feedback comments. Most of them were conducted in an L1 setting and with fewer studies set in L2 context. The most fundamental classifications of peer feedback features are binary, as listed here, and more complicated classifications were proposed later. A model that is extremely relevant to writing assessment feedback is the one proposed by Wu and Shun. This model is adapted for this study, and I'll elaborate on how we employ this model in a later part. Although much research has probed into the features of peer feedback, prior research has not incorporated the rubrics employed in peer assessment into the actual analysis of peer feedback features. Also, coding schemes employed in these studies were not fine-grained enough. So that brings me to our two research questions. The first one is, in which aspects can peer feedback supplement teacher feedback in improving essay writing? And the second one is, what are the features of implementable peer feedback compared to teacher feedback, and what is the connection between feedback features and its take-in? So now let's move on to the methodology part. A total of 94 Chinese-speaking English learners from 3 parallel classes and 3 faculties participated in this study. The students responded to 2 expository writing tasks successively, and requirements of which were the same. Task 1 was an expository essay titled Challenges for First-Year SGTU Students, while Task 2 was topic-free. Students received grades from the classroom teacher for Task 1 and from peers on Task 2 on the first drafts, accompanied with detailed feedback. Next up, data collection procedures. Firstly, students were assigned writing task 1. Then the teacher rated the writings and provided feedback to each student regarding the 3 dimensions in the rubrics. And the students revised their first draft and submitted the revision. After a 2-week interval, students responded to a second writing task. This time, they also took the role of peer readers and assessed 4 peer writings on average. Students then rated peer essays and provided feedback. Then they revised the drafts and submitted the revision. Pre-post comparison on the peer assessment quality was evaluated by 3 faculties with a partially crossed design, as shown in this table 1. In this way, links were established between the rating sessions through common readers. In addition to that, we draw on 3 natural language processing tools to obtain objective linguistic indicators. The linguistic features fall into 3 constructs: lexical, syntactic, and cohesion. We ultimately settled on 22 indicators of logic and language quality, where logic was measured by 4 cohesion indices and language quality by 6 lexical quality indices and 12 syntactic complexity indices, as shown in Table 2 to Table 4. Actually, there's a lot more to learn about this part, but since we are pushed for time, let's just move on to feedback coding. In order to explore the features of feedback, we coded both teacher and peer feedback, adapting a coding scheme adapted from Wu and Shun, as presented in this figure. And feedback was firstly divided into separate idea units. Then the idea units were classified according to the scope structure, which was developed in accordance with the evaluation rubric, as shown in Table 2, this table. And subsequently, we picked out the implementable feedback and coded them for the presence or absence of the 4 cognitive features. And a total of 923 idea units were produced from peer feedback and 857 idea units from teacher feedback as a result of coding. Okay, so that's the methodology part. Well, now let's turn to the results and discussion. For both task 1 and task 2, the reading data were analyzed using many-facet Rasch measurement with the software phases. Students displayed statistically significant score gains in both writing tasks. Thus, task 2 was not disadvantaged in terms of score improvement, despite receiving only peer feedback. So, are there any differences between revisions after peer feedback and teacher feedback? Well, let's now turn to the changes reflected in the indices generated by the 3 NLP tools for which a series of pair sample t-tests were performed. Table 6, this table presents the changes of cohesion indices. As you can see, the writing performance showed significant improvement at both sentence level and paragraph level after teacher feedback based on 3 out of 4 indices. It also improved at both levels after peer feedback, but this was supported only by 1 indicator per level. Next up, Table 7 presents the statistics for the lexical quality indices, and there was no change in lexical diversity or density after either teacher or peer feedback. For lexical sophistication, 3 out of 4 indices showed a significant decrease after teacher feedback, but only 1 decreased after peer feedback. In other words, peer feedback is not as influential as teacher feedback in altering lexical sophistication in revisions on the one hand, and on the other hand, revisions tend to show less sophistication. Table 8 summarizes the changes in syntactic complexity. We can see nothing changed with statistical significance after peer feedback, but 5 measures of syntactic complexity involving 3 dimensions changed significantly after teacher feedback. 2 indices increased, they are MLC and CPC. However, the 3 indices, CT, DCC, and DCT, demonstrated a decrease in value after teacher feedback. In sum, peer feedback seemed to initiate different changes from teacher feedback. While peer feedback helped with lexical measures, it did not help at the syntactic level, and teacher feedback did not result in more syntactic complexity and lexical sophistication, but these were expected. Since the implementation rate of feedback is an important factor that can impact the revision decisions, we now turn to feedback features to understand their influence on feedback take-in. For feedback on structure, the rightmost column in Table 9 revealed that there is no statistically significant difference between teacher and peers. Both teacher and peers commented on holistic structures the most, and they commented on the presence of topic sentence the least. Once the structural issues was identified, the teacher tended to give higher rates of explanation, solution, or suggestions, although the total counts were not significantly different between the 2 groups. In sum, students were able to evaluate the overall quality of essay structure, and they give similar portions of constructive feedback as the teacher. And this table shows our findings of feedback features on logic. The teacher and the peer reviewers identified comparable portions of issues at paragraph level and sentence level. Similar to structure, the teacher was more inclined to offer explanations, solutions, or suggestions. However, the difference did not reach statistical significance within each category. And again, students seem to be able to replace the teacher's role in commenting on logic issues. But what about language quality? The rightmost column in Table 11 revealed that there was a statistically significant difference between them in terms of their comments on language quality. What stands out is that 50% of teacher feedback focused on appropriateness, while 51% of peer feedback focused on accuracy. There was also a difference in the relevant distribution of feedback scopes within explanation, solution, and suggestion. More specifically, both the teacher and peers provided the most explanation on appropriateness, but the teacher explained accuracy least while students explained complexity the least. The teacher provided specific solutions almost equally to all issues identified, but students focused mainly on accuracy. What's more, the teacher offered the most suggestions on appropriateness, but also the least on accuracy. In all, results seem to imply that students may be able to supplement teachers' role in identifying the structural and logical issues. Teacher and student feedback differ most on language quality. The difference between teacher feedback and peer feedback links back to the TAASSC quality described earlier. First, teachers' inclination to offer explanations, solutions, or suggestions can facilitate trust in and take-in of the feedback. Second, feedback on language appropriateness can exert influence on language complexity. For instance, replacing homework with assignments in "there's too much homework for one course" was primarily aimed at improving language appropriateness. However, revision based on this feedback also led to improvement in lexical sophistication. Since assignment is less frequent than homework, many peer comments and the teacher comments on language appropriateness were due to students' inaccurate use of advanced words. Consequently, those words were replaced with simpler but more accurate ones in revisions, leading to a decline in lexical sophistication. The same also held true for a significant decrease on the three indices in syntactic complexity after teacher feedback. And the results actually offer some valuable guidance on peer feedback research. We think that this line of research should not only address whether feedback improves learning, but how feedback improves learning. And it is imperative for peer assessment feedback studies to draw on methods employed in writing assessment research. As for implications for peer assessment activities in the classroom, first, it is suggested that peer feedback should be used in combination with teacher feedback to improve pedagogical efficiency, with teachers paying more attention to those aspects where peers do not give enough effective feedback. At the same time, more effective training should be designed to complement the limitations of peer feedback as revealed in this study. In addition, although computer-aided feedback has been proven to increase the total effectiveness of student learning, it may not be able to replace human qualitative analysis of writing very soon. Finally, similar improvements in scores with different patterns of improvement in language indices demonstrate that writing assessment in classrooms should be more diversified. So this brings me to my conclusion. In brief, we firstly confirm peer feedback as an effective classroom teaching and evaluation method that can assist teacher feedback to improve writing. However, it's limited as measured by a series of objective indices compared to teacher feedback. And in terms of feedback features, students can identify issues, but teachers can provide more constructive comments. This may be due to the proficiency of readers, which in turn would affect the take-in of the feedback. And here are the references. So that completes my presentation. Thank you very much for your attention. Thank you.